castle goring from Nikki, Aurora, and from me. We have an awful lot of ground to cover today if Aurora will allow me to not be kissed by her. I'm going to try to introduce a moment or two of levity wherever possible, so that, because by and large, some of this is pretty serious and some of this is pretty heavy, but wherever possible, let's leaven the loaf and lighten the burden, shall we? So, without further ado, I am going to plunge right in. And the very first question is from, actually, it's several people. So in fact, instead of reading out all the questions, I'm just going to stick to the subject, which was really rather interesting. Several people noted that after the Queen's announcement, there were rainbows that appeared outside of Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle. The ancient Romans, who believed strongly in omens, would have said that these are very promising signs. And I do not necessarily believe in omens, but I think they were very beautiful signs, whether they meant anything or not. So I just make that point for what it's worth, because some people are more suspicious, some people are more superstitious. I fall between the two posts, so nevertheless, they were beautiful signs and beautiful omens. Now, C.J. Weaver says, as a Canadian who values the stability of government the constitutional monarchy brings, I think your tributes to Her Majesty the Queen have been very touching. I am so sad on a human level for the various stresses this poor lady had to deal with in the twilight years of her reign, yet she stoically carried on. God save the King. C.J. Weaver is but one of many people who have expressed similar sentiments. And because I agree with them heartfeltedly, I am passing her comment or his comment on to you. You have no idea of some of the stresses and strains that took place behind the scenes. No idea. Just because you see the iceberg doesn't mean you know how much of the ice is submerged. I don't know all, but I know a certain amount, and I have to tell you, my heart broke for the Queen. It is beyond belief the inhumane way she was treated. More than that, I am not prepared to say at this point. Aside from anything, I'm not sure a YouTube channel is the appropriate place to discuss matters of this kind. Books are another matter altogether. And remember, my first profession is as a writer. Jilly Nix says, so is this the Carolingian age? Russian for Charles, probably wrong spelling. It is the wrong spelling. You know, like the Elizabethan age, etc. Jilly Nix, I love you. Thank you so much for the comment and for the question. No, it is the Carolean age. There is a Carolingian dynasty, of which I am proud to say my father is a part, because my father is a descendant of the Emperor Charlemagne, after whom the Carolingian dynasty is named. But he's through the illegitimate line, through William the Conqueror, which means that we are the illegitimate line as opposed to the legitimate line. Nevertheless, it is a source of great pride to me, and it is to most descendants of William the Conqueror and the Emperor Charlemagne. That's the Carolingian dynasty. And may I just interject as an aside and say that there are members of the Carolingian dynasty who actually say that we are actually the Merovingian dynasty, and that we are descended from, wait for it, Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene, who they say got married. Well, I'm not prepared to go down that route, and I'm perfectly happy to park my vehicle in William the Conqueror's parking space. Let's put it that way. I think William the Conqueror was an extraordinary man. He did extraordinary things, and he created Windsor Castle, for what that's worth. Now, to introduce a moment of levity. Inga Jewel says, "Dear Lady C, all of a sudden, Facebook inundated me with Meganosaurus adoring posts. Sunshine. And there was a jolly family picture of the royal family, but I couldn't help noticing that the Duke of Edinburgh had Her Majesty's feet. Heeled court shoes and all." The late Duke of Edinburgh cross-dressing. Take it from me, that was never a possibility. How diverse, my dear. How diverse, how woke, how very Meghanian. I commented, and now that post has disappeared. Perhaps someone needs to work on their Photoshop skills. Well, I do know that the PR, actually, why don't we just call them the propagandists? Because that's what they are. They are working overtime. There are things going on behind the scenes, and there are narratives that they and their boss are trying to put into play that some of us are very aware of, and we are quite determined, if we have anything to do with it, none of that mischief's gonna see the light of day. But we'll get to that in a while. Victoria says, Meghan wasn't invited to do a walkabout. She showed up uninvited. The BBC was reporting the Prince and Princess of Wales with Prince Harry were getting ready to do their walkabout. Then they had to edit their report to add M's name. Victoria, may I say, our beloved Queen is dead, and I am actually all in favour of an appearance of harmony and the presentation of unity, even when it doesn't exist. But let me put it this way. Those who know Meghan well and have known her all her life say she has never missed an opportunity to push herself to the forefront and grab attention. She doesn't like being excluded. Now, I have to tell you, without casting my lot one way or the other, because I want to be relatively discreet in this matter, you will notice that none of the other younger members of the royal family, none, not one, was accompanied by a spouse. Not one. Princess Eugenie, Princess Beatrice. Well, Peter Phillips doesn't have a spouse at the moment. Zara Phillips, Zara Tyndall as she now is, the only spouse who needed to be there in terms of the monarchy was the future Queen of England, Scotland, Ireland, and Northern Ireland and Wales. And no one else. However, when you're pushy and brazen and quite determined to never ever miss a photo op, there's no way you're going to allow anybody to make you miss it. And since the whole purpose of incorporating Harry and Meghan, whether she incorporated herself or not, she was incorporated, was to take the heat out of the situation. There have been serious concerns that the situation as it was, with all of the animosity known publicly to be floating around, would result in Meghan and Harry being booed at the funeral. Nobody wanted that. I don't want it. I should hope you don't want it. It would take the focus off Her Majesty, and it would put the focus where it doesn't belong. We don't want negativity, do we? Not on the day that our beloved Queen is laid to rest. That is the major reason why Harry and or Meghan's presence was and or presences were encouraged. Sylvia Di Bernardo says, Lady C, I have just heard that Jezebel and Judas are going to bring the kids for our Majesty's funeral. I am sure we all know they are using these children to make money. Can our new king stop them doing this? It was bad enough seeing Jezebel walking the mall looking at the flowers. Can you confirm, please? Again, we need to understand that the royal family has dignity, wants to conduct itself with dignity, is decorous and wants decorum, and to minimize anything controversial or unsavory, especially at a time like this. I think any family in their shoes would want to minimize things and not have aggression, contumely, press briefings against them, etc., etc. Meghan, my understanding is determined to stay and support H. And H is determined to stay. And of course, Meghan isn't going to stay because of the photo op. Not a bit of it, Mr. DeMille. I've never been hungry for the camera, have I? Where's that cameraman? I want to get onto the light, my light, and have my close-up, Mr. DeMille. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Not that I'm vain. No, I'm not. I'm just got to share my greatness with the world. Well, did anybody in their right mind really think that Meghan Markle was going to deprive herself of the limelight that the leading event in the world at the moment would avail her of? Think of it in those terms. The children, if Harry and Meghan choose to fly them over, will be welcomed. That's the correct thing to do. I come from a family that was at times very divided. Nevertheless, decorum was always maintained publicly. And this is what the royal family is trying to do and what they ought to do. It's called dignity. Anything else would be poor form. So if the children want to come, I should rephrase that. If Harry and Meghan want the children to come, yes, but what is interesting is, you notice, the children didn't see the light of day at the celebratory jubilee. So hopefully they're not going to see the light of day at the funeral or anything attached to it. Let's hope. Mary Glossman Muro says, Rachel Ragland is accepting condolences for a great woman whom she insulted, tortured, demeaned constantly, and in my humble opinion hastened Her Majesty the Queen to her demise as she did with Prince Philip. The cheek. Rachel Glossman Muro. I have read that out because these are sentiments shared by, well, let me put it this way, tens of thousands of comments have been made on this platform to that effect. And those are sentiments that I share wholeheartedly. I have been appalled at the way Meghan has orchestrated the mistreatment of the Queen and Prince Philip as they were dying and when they died. I have been absolutely horrified and appalled. And I'm going to tell you something. My sisters and I were hardly enamored of our mother, notwithstanding the terrible things she did to all of us and everybody else. When we were told that she had 18 to 24 months left to live, each of us left our homes and each of us spent 1 week every 6 weeks with her. So that 1 week it was one of us, then the next week it was just the staff, Then the next week it was the other of us. Then the next week it was just the staff. Then the next week it was a third of us. Then just the staff. So at all times we made sure that she was properly treated and that she was given the attention and respect, and to the extent that we were capable of giving it, such love as we had for her. This is notwithstanding the fact that Erica Freeman, one of the world's most eminent psychoanalysts, recommended to me that I write as a public service, Daughter of Narcissus, about my narcissistic mother. If we did that for a mother who was an appalling example of humanity, how is it that Meghan Markle orchestrated a situation where the Queen and Prince Philip were subjected to absolutely undue stress and disturbance and discomfiture, and their life's work was threatened by her actions to their great perturbation? How is it that we could have done that? And we're not extraordinary people. We are perfectly ordinary, decent people. And this woman who poses as if she is some paean to compassion could have done that. I just throw that out for what it's worth. Menaga Mannion says, Dear Lady C, are you aware of the games Meghan Markle and her PR team are scheming to play during this sorrowful time of the Queen's passing? If so, please share them here and expose them, as it would be a preemptive strike. Blowing the lid off their plans could serve as a deterrent against executing them. Right? Thank you. Menaga Mannion, yes, I know of some. I'm sure I don't know of all. And I'm sure between now and when my mouth is closed, these plotters and schemers and adventurers and crass opportunists will come up with 3 variations on their latest theme. But yes, I do know of 1 or 2 narratives that Meghan and her PR people are hoping to protrude upon the world, if I may put it like that. I am not prepared to allow them to pad the narrative by stealing attention from our beloved Queen and King Charles III, who has started his reign in the most wonderful fashion. He has been so marvelous. He has ticked every box, struck every note correctly. His tone has been impeccable. His words have been wonderful. His actions superb. I'm not going to be stealing their thunder by exposing, because that's what they want. They have been laying down the narrative, cushioning. They have been cushioning situations so that people would fall for their narratives and that people will notice the narrative without noticing the padding that goes behind the narrative. And I am afraid I am not obliging. No. There are times in life when if you know somebody wants to do something and you know it's wrong, just make sure you say no. And I'm saying no. Deterrent, I'm afraid we are dealing with people whose lack of scruples is so pronounced that they are like rats trapped in a circle. They will keep on going from pillar to post, trying to find a way out. I'm not obliging. However, if and when these narratives see the light of day and achieve the recognition that they are hoping they will achieve, so that will then put the megalomaniac on the front pages yet again, if only for 12 or 24 hours. But an addict needs its fix. And if you're a fame junkie, I dare say even 12 hours is better than nothing. Well, I'm not helping. I hope that makes my position clear. Lava 4000 says, as a psychiatrist, I don't say this lightly, but I think Harry's behavior has been abhorrent. Big block capitals. Incidentally, Lava 4000 is an American. I can tell by the spelling. Sorry, so if I may continue. Harry's behavior has been abhorrent, and he is complicit and encouraging in everything Meghan says and does while they are together. And they are cruel and truly bat S.T. I think that most likely is this slightly rearranged, or we know what the word is. They are bat hits with an S in front of it, crazy together. Yes, I think they are truly bat hit with an S in front of it, crazy together. Folly adair. That's my opinion too. And I'll tell you, Lava 4000, you're not the only psychiatrist who has said that. I have said here before that I am in touch with medical professionals of great repute and eminence, and they pretty much are in total agreement with you. What we are witnessing is the most unedifying display of folly adair. It actually turns one's stomach. However, let's get through the next few days with the minimum of attention being diverted in that direction. Janice Reeves says, Michael Portillo on GB News has just described the joint walkabout at Windsor Castle between William and Catherine and Harry and Meghan as the throwing down of the velvet gauntlet. Michael Portillo does have a way with words. He really does. Mr. Portillo was sceptical that this was a rapprochement of any kind in the light of all the accusations made by the Sussexes. My own view is that this ice-breaking gesture was to pave the way for the smooth running of events leading up to and including the funeral, then that they will bid a relieved farewell back to America. Would love to hear your opinion on this, Lady C. Regards, Janice. I agree with Michael Portillo. I think I've already made it clear, not only now in this video, but previously, that this is a show of unity. This is a family which knows how to behave properly, publicly, trying to drag the recalcitrants into line, and the recalcitrants, knowing that it is in their interest to modify their behavior, have been accommodating, cooperative. But let's wait for it. I learned from my mother that a leopard never changes its spots. And when it's well fed, it may purr. But when it's hungry for whatever it needs and narcissistic, sociopathic, manipulative, hysterical leopards are very greedy much of the time. They will turn on their keeper, and the very person who was feeding them, they will devour if necessary, or if desirable in their eyes. I know that the King and the Prince of Wales want everything to go smoothly with the focus remaining on Her Majesty. And I am hoping that we will all want the same, notwithstanding the fact that everybody is aware of, well, as Harry said about Meghan, she's capable of anything, and she has shown it yesterday, today, she will show it tomorrow, and she's shown it in the past. Never has that pushy number been known to modify or moderate her conduct except opportunistically. And he is along for the ride. Make no mistake about it. He is complicit. She has convinced him, and he has willingly allowed himself to be convinced that black is white, pink is green, day is night, and evil is good. Louis Ritchie says, Lady C, thanks for your video here. I have a question. Here in these states, it has been told in the media that the real reason for the call from William to Harry for them to join him and Catherine on the walkabout is because the royal family found out that Meghan and H were going to do their own walkabout with their TV cameras to get footage for their Netflix stuff. Is there any truth to that? And did you see the footage of Meg barking orders at an aide who came up to help her, to talk to her while she was gathering flowers from the fans? The look on Meg's face was very telling. Big block capitals. The attitude was dripping from her look at that aide. Well, it's a two-part question. May I take the first part first and the second part second? The American press had reports that Meghan and Harry were going on their own walkabout. They got in touch with the British press for confirmation, who got in touch with the palace. Is that purely coincidental? Amid scabies has claimed that on behalf of Meghan and Harry, and we can safely say that if he says it, it's come out of their mouths, that Harry and Meghan were contacted at the 11th hour. So, of course, yet again, Harry and Meghan are the victims. They weren't going to be a part of the walkabout, notwithstanding the fact that no other spouse was a part of the walkabout in the junior generation, of which Harry and Meghan claim to be. I mean, I'd say they're middle-aged, but remember, as far as they're concerned, they're young. Also, if that version of the story isn't true, who leaked that information to the American press? It certainly does not behoove anybody on this side of the Atlantic who is based here to have leaked such information to the American press. Put on your thinking cap for 2 seconds and figure that one out. And yes, I did see Meghan being typically oppositional and disruptive and going against precedent and the format as she refused to hand over the flowers. But then again, we need to remember all those flowers in her arms show that she's loved and that the people love her. Notwithstanding the fact that I am informed that a lot of people in the crowd had stony faces and some were muttering under their breath. And as soon as Harry and Meghan moved on, their fixed smiles disappeared. And the only reason why they weren't booed was because William and Catherine were there. And everybody was there for the Queen. And everybody understands that William and Catherine function in keeping with the way the Queen functioned. She trained William up from he was a teenager. Catherine benefited from 20 years, as William has said, of her exposure to the Queen. The British people, by and large, are very humane and very well mannered. And so nobody was going to be offensive in this situation. And nobody was. Because the way it was orchestrated was that Harry and Meghan arrived with William and Catherine. They left with William and Catherine. They enjoyed the protection that William and Catherine's presence afforded them. This has been carefully thought out to dampen any controversial aspects to their presence and to lessen the awkwardness that would otherwise arise had there not been an appearance of harmony. But take it from me, you don't trust someone who's betrayed you not once or twice, but several times. You don't know some of what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes, but I certainly know enough to know. I gewalt geschrieben. Let's put it that way. Anne Wilcox says, no matter how the media tried to spin the so-called Fab Four getting back together and the two brothers united, etc., etc., this did not happen. Meghan was very nervous, out of her depth and gripping Harry for continual support. Catherine was having none of Meghan's nonsense. She pretty much ignored her and carried on with her duties. I thought Harry felt awkward and William took complete control of the walkabout. He did what was needed to make his gran proud of him. Couldn't agree more with all of that, by the way. Meghan must have been relieved when both couples walked on either side of the road greeting people, because through the TV, you could just feel Catherine's disgust of this woman, and Meghan couldn't cope with that. Why on earth doesn't she want to go back to America to be with her children and come back on Sunday for the funeral? Well, Anne Wilcox, first of all, Meghan is not one to hide her light under a bushel, nor is she one to make sure that she doesn't pinch your light when it's shining under your bushel. So no prospect of a tactical retreat, because it's a tactical advance as far as she's concerned. Yes, you only needed to read the body language to know that an appearance of unity is not the same as unity, and that the subliminal disgust that was conveyed was apparent. I don't know if you noticed it, but Meghan's behaviour was, and I'm assured of this from people who've known her all her life, was very typical of Meghan when she is in a situation she's unsure of and she wants to gain an advantage. She trots out the vulnerability that she doesn't have, and she, like, remember when she looked up at Tom Bradby in South Africa? You once asked me if I'm okay. I was. Phony vulnerability. I understand that she doesn't possess vulnerabilities. What she possesses is a tungsten-like hide, and her only sensitivities are for her own advancement and self-interest. But she has perfected the art of playing the victim and playing demure. Oh, look at me. I'm a sweet 11-year-old girl, even though I'm batting 40-something. It's all an act. It's all an act. The sweetness, the softness, the sincerity, the vulnerability, according to people who have known her well and have known her, if not for all of her life, for most of her life, it's as real as a $3 bill. Catherine behaved exactly the way I would have behaved. I relate to Catherine. If you are genuinely nice and kind and decent, you don't have to even cut someone. You just have to be yourself. And your very existence provides all the cutting that is needed, just in the contrast of your behaviour versus theirs. As for the business of the flowers, not only did Meghan show yet again to the aides, or I should say through the aides, that there is no rule that she won't break, that there is no format that she won't disrespect, that there is no script that she won't bend, because she is incapable of being truly cooperative. But in this instance, she was also endangering her life, because the reason why royals don't keep a hold of flowers for any length of time, and the reason why they are passed on, is there could be something wrong with them. Let's leave it at that. And therefore, it is desirable to have them quickly out of their hands. Also, it is untoward to be walking around with a huge number of bouquets of flowers. It is undignified. Yeah, it's a great photo op for Gayle King and CNN and NBC. Yeah, it is. Great. I'm so loved that I'm buried alive on the flowers. So inelegant. But then, what can I tell you? She's true to herself. Maria Stewart says, if I were in Harry and Meghan's shoes, I too would feel very uncomfortable at this time. And I bet as soon as Grandma Elizabeth is laid beside her beloved Philip, they're out of there. They were literally clinging to each other during the walkabout, while Kate and William were just easy breezy. Yes, they were, but then they're always clinging to each other. First of all, it's to let us know that they are Abelard and Eloise, Romeo and Juliet, Bonnie and Clyde, Leopold and Loeb. Sorry, wrong sex. Sorry. You get the message. But it's not only for that. In this instance, it was for Meghan to gain the sympathy of the public. Meghan's very good at trying to gain sympathy. People who exhibit the antisocial personality traits that she does invariably seek sympathy from their victims. We are their victims, and they invariably seek sympathy from us. There is no narrative that they are not somehow seeking one's sympathy, even as they are telling one that they are superior, know it all, better than us, etc., etc. It goes along with the territory. Admirer of the Queen says, Lady C, unless I'm mistaken, Harry, Meghan, and their chief mystic natures are still hard at work. Their Their mouthpiece in chief amidst scabies has tweeted, I understand that, unlike Prince Andrew, Prince Harry will not be allowed to wear a uniform at the final vigil in Westminster Hall. No doubt a huge blow for the Duke of Sussex, who served for 10 years and this morning spoke of the Queen being his commander-in-chief. I'd be intrigued to hear your take on this. Well, admirer of the Queen, first of all, let me say, Harry is a joke speaking about his commander-in-chief after his wife has disrespected her and the whole of the family to such an extent. Secondly, he has a nerve speaking about his commander-in-chief, considering the way he has disrespected her. Thirdly, his conduct has been elective. Prince Andrew's conduct was not elective. Prince Andrew has been the victim, and I'm gonna repeat it, the victim of a diabolical setup by an adventuress who at the moment is being sued in the American courts for being a procuress by one of her victims. Prince Andrew committed no crime. Prince Andrew was one of the most attractive, desirable bachelors on earth when the event took place. And if the woman in question led him, according to her, to believe on 3 separate occasions that she was so keen on him that she was willing to be obliging, and he knew nothing about the fact that she was actually a professional who was being paid, not only did he commit no crime, but what he did was fully understandable. I would put it to you that many a 40-year-old bachelor on his own and lonely would have his head turned by an 18-year-old girl, especially if she looks older, but even if she doesn't. And now, I speak from experience here, because when I was 19, I actually was in love with somebody who was 9 years older than I was, and he didn't stand a chance. That's what happens with young girls with older men. And young girls have their lure and their allure. So let's remember that Prince Andrew, A, did nothing wrong, and I don't want to hear from people who think he did. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, I'm entitled to mine. So save your breath. And irrespective of it all, Prince Andrew has unwillingly had to step back, while Prince Harry willingly stepped back. Prince Andrew had to step back for the good of his mother. He is the one who, to make sure that the Jubilee would go off without any controversy, made the sacrifice of settling. I knew at the time that the Queen was very ill. I hinted at it here. Of course, I wasn't going to be indecorous enough to say it, but he knew as well. And don't for a second believe that Harry and Meghan haven't known all along. But they couldn't get their sorry backsides up to see the Queen, except for one photo op. Spare me. Spare me. We're supposed to feel sympathy for this jerk? I'm sorry, I feel none. And I don't think anybody in their right mind should either. A Jamaican worker of colour and class, I love it, says, Lady C, I want you to know many of your compatriots love, big block capitals, your take on things. I went to Wolmer's and got a superb education. Wolmer's girls and boys school, they're 2 separate schools if I remember correctly, was one of Jamaica's, Kingston's top secondary schools. So to those of you who don't know, I learned that very little is quite as black or white as this new generation believes. I had the privilege of serving the Queen and Prince Philip when they visited Jamaica in the 60s and found them to be surprisingly personable and down to earth. I need you to comment on the tweet Uju Anya, Associate Professor at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, wrote after Buckingham Palace announced that the Queen's doctors were concerned about her health. I quote, I heard the chief monarch of a thieving, raping, genocidal empire is finally dying. May her pain be excruciating. Well, I'm sorry. Such hatred. Twitter rightly removed the quote, the comment, and the university has distanced itself from it without penalizing her. And there I am in agreement. I think she is entitled to express her opinion. What I would ask the Board of Governors of the university, however, is can you seriously be having a woman so full of hatred, vitriol, and whose behavior is so completely uncivilized and unacceptable, teaching students? The woman in question is half Nigerian and half Trinidadian. Her parents met at university in England, so that means they were at least middle class, if not upper middle class or upper class. Background of privilege, black privilege, black privilege. I continue. After marriage, the parents moved to Nigeria. Then her father took another wife, and the mother upped sticks and moved to the United States of America with their children. Well, of course, whatever her name is, and I don't want to even have it stick in my mind, the fact of the matter is that had her parents gone to Trinidad as opposed to Nigeria, there is no way that what happened to her mother and with the family could have happened. The West Indies does not, as a region, tolerate polygamy. Right there, we have a problem, don't we? Because this is a woman who is filled with violent vitriol about an empire, the British Empire. She forgets the Nigerian chiefs and kings sent their representatives in 1833 to the House of Commons to try to prevent the abolition of slavery. So, I suppose it's okay because she's black to play the victim card and to be full of hatred against white people. What against other black people who are equally guilty of the same thing? Moreover, in Africa, slavery lasted long after it did in the West Indies. Slavery was never legal in Great Britain, ever, 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 under the present system, meaning the constitutional monarchy. There would have been slavery here in ancient Roman times and maybe in the Dark Ages, but not since the Renaissance. So right there, she's got the wrong end of the stick. Also, the Nigerians are infinitely more corrupt, as their actions have proven in recent years, their governments, than anything British, past, present, and hopefully future. These are facts. Yet she has the temerity to try to play the race card. You know, there are an awful lot of black people who play this card very damagingly to black interests, because there are an awful lot of black people who do not approve of such ridiculously unsustainable postures. I'm going to end with what Muhammad Ali, the great boxer, said when he went to Africa. I think it was for the Foreman fight, and I think it was the Congo, but anyway, it might have been the Central African Empire or Republic. It was somewhere in deepest, darkest Africa, the middle of Africa, I think. And he thanked God that he hadn't been born in Africa and that his ancestors had been shipped to America. So, bad as things have been, and they have been bad at certain times, Muhammad Ali preferred having been shipped, his ancestors shipped to the United States of America. And Muhammad Ali is a genuine black hero. I think we can safely leave it at that for the moment. And we end with Linda Rothschild, who says, Lady C, I just heard the news that Princess Beatrice has been given the Counsellor of State position from King Charles. Does she replace Prince Andrew or ex-Royal Harry? I know that you will have the answer since you so understand these positions and their responsibilities. Thank you. Thank you, Linda Rothschild. No, Prince Charles created a vacancy when he became king, and it is a replacement done under the Regency Act by the next adult in the line of succession. And as long as Harry states that he is domiciled here, he remains a Counsellor of State. Any day he states that he is no longer domiciled here is the day he can be shaken off that tree. But between now and then, he is in situ. And Princess Beatrice now supplants Prince Charles, who is now King Charles. So hopefully that answers the question. And on that note, I will say thank you so much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell. And remember, please keep the questions and comments coming in. This cannot be done without you. Thank you so much. God bless and goodbye.